So now,
Thank you.
President Hakainde Hichilema's foreign trips attracted investments worth $3.8 billion in the first half of this year. What does this say about investor confidence in Zambia, and how will this impact our economy?
First of all, we need to put the figures in context. Just as much as we would say that's significant commitment by potential investors, we have had those pledges before. We have even had more or less higher figures before, except that when you look at the mix of commitments, much of it is not coming from the Eastern Bloc, it's coming from the Western Bloc, and that to me is a significant change. Otherwise, we have had those figures before, but speaks a lot about the direction this country is taking, and the confidence that it is suddenly being tapped into from the Western country investors. As you know, wherever the Chinese investors are, there is a rivalry. This is undefined and written rivalry between Chinese and countries from the West. They have got their own principles, their own benchmarks on which countries they want to go into. So those figures worth of pledges are mainly coming from the Western Bloc. And maybe another dimension to this is that pledges remain pledges. Most of the pledges that were made previously were not honored. Maybe out of the total amount of pledges, maybe only 8%, 7%, 10% materializes in actual investment into the country. The rest remains like that. And the question that we should always be asking is why is it that countries make it very easy to make commitments in pledges but don't come? Are we going to see a difference this time? And that is my anticipation, that given the nature of the pledges that Zambia has now, we may have a higher number of actualized investments, unlike the experiences before. If we can have even 30% or 40% of that total pledges, it makes significant difference to the Zambian economy. Thank you.
Let's also look at this now from what you say there. And you're right. It's interesting because it's coming more so from the Western Bloc. And this is something that people have also alluded towards, President Hakainde Hichilema, people talking about his close relations with people from the Western part of the world. But this is something we heard also significantly before he became Republican president, that this is a man who's going to use his connections when he's in government to bring in investment. So do you think this also speaks towards that perhaps he could be capitalizing on his good relations with people from the West?
I think it speaks about the nature of character of Western investors. Let me say that it's much easier to deal with investors from the East than it does to deal with investors from the West. To be able to tap into those investors from the West means that they really trust you, and they believe so much that when they commit into a country, the prospects of policy reversal are very, very minimal. I have been dealing with Western investors for a long time, and they strongly stand in international sovereign rating. You will find them easily participate in what we call short-term investments. These are portfolio investments in terms of the Eurobond, where they participated. They participate regularly in the government paper, the treasury bills, and the government bonds. These are the ones who really bring in money here. But they invest in those because they know they can pull out at any given moment. They can sell their assets at any moment. Treasury bills, they can exit the country at any moment. But to get into what we call foreign direct investment, this is sunk-in investment. This is investment that is categorized under either resource-seeking investment. Resource-seeking means that they are coming here to dig into the ground, to find minerals, to do prospecting, or what we call value addition or skills-based investment. This is bringing a plant here to manufacture locally and then find markets within the country and outside the country. Now, these investors are very difficult to bring in. Why? It's because their determination of investing in a country is influenced by two key factors. Number one, the political nature of a country. This is about the risk profile of a given country. Two, the prospect of policy reversal. Now, let me say this. Zambia is a neighbor to a country called Zimbabwe. And all people know in the West, the Eastern Bloc didn't really worry much about the policy reforms that were undertaken in 1999, 2000, coming forward by the late President Mugabe, where he reversed investment policy. He grabbed assets, he grabbed land. That profile of Zimbabwe has become the profile of Zambia. So most of the Western investors, these are corporate entities, they consider the risk profile of Zimbabwe to be the same as the risk profile of Zambia. And that is why the previous regimes have had it very, very difficult to convince the Western investors to come into this country, because they can come into the hot money, the portfolio investment, but not sunk in capital. Because once there is policy reversal, once government changes its tax regime, once government changes its employment regime, once government changes any regulatory environment or any factor that affects their confidence in the country, they have to pull out that investment. But how can you pull out equipment? So that's why they hesitate coming here. Now, for them to make those pledges means that they have reprofiled Zambia. They have got confidence in the new regime. And I've heard this from them anyway. Even before he became president, I used to have these talks with them. So to me, that is the major story, that perhaps, I'm not saying this is guaranteed platform or guaranteed stability of the Zambian economy, but it gives some kind of hope to them, a kind of a signal to them that the Zambian environment is ripe for long-term investment by the most sensitive investors from the West.
Well, we have seen the president make trips to foreign countries, and let's talk about that and how this, how Zambians can be able to capitalize on this. Let's talk about the environment that SMEs can partake in, especially when we speak on doing business within the foreign markets. Do you think that these trips have also created some sort of conducive environment for SME to be able to do business within these foreign markets?
Absolutely. You may know that I traveled with the Minister of Green Economy and Environment, Minister Collins Zovu, to Finland. I accompanied government, but I was sponsored by the Finnish government through AGS. And this was to really be kind of a link between prospective investors from Finland and what government may be looking for. So I was more or less an advisor to the government at that particular moment. And we engaged a lot of Finnish investors, a lot of them, and most of them were SMEs. Our interest was how could they come into, for example, the circular economy and also participate in every area of investment, like in the energy sector, in the telecom sector, and partner with the local SMEs. So we really desired that they tap, because Finland, by the way, Finland is 75% driven by SMEs. If you want to look at a country that is run by SMEs, it is Finland. These are SMEs that have grown from family businesses, and now they are not only supplying to the Finnish economy, they are exporting their products abroad. So we went to listen to them and talk to them. And they are, I would call that as a microcosm in the sense that it represents the true picture of how many other countries driven by SMEs would want to tap into the potential here. By the way, when the president was speaking to the European, what was that one, that platform in Europe, when there was an ovation, that was the European...
The EU,
the EU.
Yes, yes.
Shortly after I watched that clip, I found one of the ministers, and I even had a chance to also meet the minister of SMEs. One of the ministers I found, I said, "Did you watch that?" The president has made a very strong commitment to those investors, and many been watching because they have really been following him. That I know for sure. A lot have been following his sentiments, his comments, and everything else. So I phoned this minister. I said, "Did you listen to that? Did you listen to the commitment on the Champions League? That Zambia is now back to the Champions League." And I said to him, and I asked a question to the minister: "Is Zambia ready?" And that was my question. Is Zambia ready? The president of Zambia has made this firm commitment, assuring investors that Zambia is ready to host them. Zambia is ready to host them. But have we put the house in order back home? Our SMEs mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, and technologically ready to accommodate a prospective investor from any country to partner here? And one of the investors apparently even told me that we want to partner in Zambia, but there is no portal. There is no portal. The ZDA has not created a platform where we can hunt our potential partners. We want to partner with universities. We want to partner with SMEs, and we are in this business, and we want to know who else in Zambia is already in this business and is willing to partner with us. We cannot find that information. Okay. In other words, we must first of all put our house in order to be able to accommodate and host any potential investor who wants to come here. I don't think they want to come here and find that sentiment and investment sentiment is very strong. We need to mentally and emotionally be ready to host people, investments of a different culture. This is a different culture. They want to find a culture that they can relate with, a culture of integrity, of transparency, of accountability. It should not only be found among government officials. They want to find it among the potential SMEs. This is the time SMEs in Zambia should be ready, sufficiently ready, to accommodate a partner who comes from any part of this world. Thank you.
As we conclude, I know there's a lot we can talk about on this discussion, but as we conclude, two things really. One, so should we encourage the president to continue making the trips he's making as the chief marketing officer, as he calls himself? And two, getting back to the issue of most of the investment perspectives and all of that coming through from the western part of the world mostly, which is quite interesting because if we look at the trips that the president has been taking, a lot of them usually maybe within Africa, going to Europe as well. We know that he traveled, yes, to New York for the general conference last year. But we've seen all these trips that he's been making, and most of them are not particularly from the West. So how do these dynamics also work that most of it now, so far from the first half, is coming through from the West, even though majority of his trips have not been from there?
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm checking something here for you because I had a phone call from one of the high commissioners, embassies from the East to have a meeting at the embassy. And it was a 2-hour meeting between me and myself. You know, apparently there are people who really believe I'm part of government. they call me the quasi. They have nicknamed me the quasi government official. I'm not. I'm just independent consultant. But I had this session with one of the high commissioners. for 2 hours. And he was really saying, we are concerned that the president is tilted towards the West, but we are also capable. We are also here. Why is he only visiting the West? Why is he pro-West? This is the High Commissioner. And after that discussion, I called one of the ministers and I said, I had this discussion and this is the concern. And the minister texted, and that's the text I wanted to read for you, but because of time. And over time, after 1 week, I facilitated a meeting where the two met, the minister and the High Commissioner. And the minister explained, I have the detail here, where he clarified that apparently we are not pro-Western. We are pro-everywhere. And the minister actually assured him that we will be visiting your country as well very soon. And I'm very sure that the president of Zambia will be visiting the Eastern Bloc very soon. I don't have the diary or whatever, but this is just my anticipation. I don't think he's biased towards the West, except that the West has seen an opportunity to engage the Zambian government over after the change of government. They have just seen an opportunity. And you know what? If the president had to respond to every invitation right now, he would not be in this country. He would be out of the country every day because he has received a lot of invitations, both from government and the private sector, but mainly from the West. Because for them, they feel, one of them actually confided in me and say, you know what? I think we were sloppy before. We were spending too much time to engage Zambia by meeting after meeting in boardrooms, strategizing about how to engage Zambia. By the time we finish one boardroom meeting, China is already there. Mm-hmm. By the time we finish another board, China is already there. Mm-hmm. So we are late. Now we are awake. That's what he told me. Mm-hmm. Now we are awake. We have realized that too many boardroom meetings to engage Zambia will make us lose another opportunity to invest there. That's why you are finding the president is appearing to be pro-Western. It is just because the pro-Western companies have realized this time we don't have to sleep, engage Zambia as quickly as possible. In conclusion of your first question, I think it had to do with the trips and so forth. Mm-hmm. And I always say that I personally would rather the president traveled more right now. Not after, but now when the appetite and excitement about Zambia is still very strong. Sentiment about Zambia right now is very, very strong. And we must maintain this momentum by communicating more and more and more. And as the president is doing all that marketing outside this country, both West and East, East, the vice president, by the way, has been frequenting the East. Now we want the president himself to frequent the East. The more they do that, the more we should put our house in order.